All right, what is going on, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to the KC Sports Report. I'm your host, Michael Darcy, as always, and today I have the pleasure to be joined by my friend, Josh Fan. You can find him over as a contributor at Arrowhead Addict and also on his own website at showmefootball.com. So, Josh, today we're going to talk about Orlando Brown Jr. and everything surrounding that whole scenario. And first of all, how are you doing today, and what do you think is going to happen with Orlando Brown Jr.?
I'm doing great, and it's also great to be back on your channel, Michael, since it's been a little bit.
It has.
We've had some time after the aftermath of the AFC Championship game to kind of soak things in more and form opinions on who we may want in free agency and yada yada.
Really quickly, let me just say something. I woke up this morning and thought, how did we lose that game? Like, I think about it every once in a while. Like, how on earth did we lose that AFC Championship game? It still doesn't make sense to me.
I know, and it hurts because watching the Super Bowl, and I didn't pay super close attention to the Super Bowl. You know, my family had a party and everything like that. You know, I went and was there for the game. But, you know, the entire time I couldn't get the thought out of my head, like, we should be in this game, and we probably would have been winning this game.
Yeah. But we got to move on, and we got to learn from previous mistakes. And I think that one of those things that they're going to have to do in the offseason is extend Orlando Brown. Now, there's a big question mark surrounding his I guess there's not a question mark surrounding whether he's going to be on the team next year. He's going to be on the Chiefs. He's going to play left tackle in 2022. But the question is going to be, are they going to find a way to extend him to a long-term deal, or are they going to have to use the franchise tag? And Brett Veach said in a press conference that they're more than likely going to have to place the franchise tag on him. So I think that could be a little bit of a smokescreen. I wouldn't be surprised if they come to an agreement, but the final day to franchise tag a player is March 8th. So what are your thoughts on Brett Veach's comments on this matter, and what do you think is going to happen?
Well, you know, I think they're going to use the franchise tag on him now. It's possible they franchise tag him, sure, and they don't get a deal done before the season, but, like, we have to remember that when you franchise tag a player, it doesn't mean that they have to play on the tag. You can still get a long-term deal done with them while they're franchise tagged, but the franchise tag, it keeps them from ever hitting the open market. So when Brett Veach says that he's going to use the tag on Orlando Brown, or that they would like to, I think he means they're going to use the tag on Orlando Brown. Otherwise, like, you know, most teams usually utilize the franchise tag on at least one guy. They're not just going to not use it, especially when they have two free agents as big as Orlando Brown and Tyrann Mathieu potentially hitting the market. So I expect them to franchise Orlando Brown, and they'll get a long-term deal done actually relatively quickly, in my opinion. But, you know, I actually wrote about Orlando Brown's impending free agency for Arrowhead Addict, and I kind of said, like, you know what, I'm not even going to try to be over-dramatic. Like, there's no scenario in which Orlando Brown leaves the Chiefs. Like, you spent all those resources to get him, love him or hate him. He had a pretty good season. He settled in well. He's not going anywhere, and I expect him to get paid pretty handsomely.
Yeah, and in 2021, he had 7 penalties and only allowed 4 sacks. Now, I did have some gripes about him early on in the season, specifically week 1, but it was week 1 of going up against Myles Garrett, so we knew some pretty bad things were going to happen. But, you know, there was also some times this year where it's just like, oh my God, Orlando, what do you do? Like, there was a couple of those times, at least for me, where he just looked outclassed. Now, with that being said, they're going to pay him. There's no situation in where he is not going to be a member of the Kansas City Chiefs in 2022. They're going to pay him, or at least franchise tag him, because I think that, you know, the Chiefs understand the importance of having that left tackle, and specifically a guy that is pretty good friends with Patrick Mahomes. I think he went to his bachelor's party. Orlando Brown Jr. is not going anywhere. Now, the question is, what is that extension going to look like? Because I think that the big thought before last year is that he was going to get paid like $22 million a year. And I don't know if what we saw last year is worth $20 to $22 million a year. I would feel more comfortable around the $17 to $18 million range, just because I think that, you know, his play on the field, while it wasn't bad last year, I don't think it was indicative of top 5 left tackle money?
Well, here's the thing. He's going to get probably right around $20 million per year. I think it's going to be 5 years, like $100 million, maybe a little bit over. And some people aren't going to like the sound of that, but you have to remember Orlando Brown is still only, 24, 25 years old. So, I mean, he still has room to grow. He could also shed some weight by next season and improve his drop a little bit, or his kick step, to keep up with some of the edge rushers that like to speed around the edge with him, which is really the only area in which he struggled. If you tried to go inside on him, it really wasn't going to end well for you most of the time, and he was also great in run blocking. But, I will say this about Orlando Brown because, I mean, like you said, you had gripes with him, and I know a lot of people did. It seems like people are kind of focusing on his lowlights from the season when, in all reality, you're not factoring in what he did throughout the season as a whole, because he actually put together pretty good football, for the whole year. I mean, he had a few games where, okay, he got beat a couple times, but he did pretty good. And you know what? I remember with Eric Fisher, anytime, a lot of times he was solid. He was never going to be the reason you won games or anything, but you could win with him. But a lot of times when you went up against, top-of-the-line edge rushers, Eric Fisher was going to struggle. Orlando Brown does, I would say, a lot better than Eric Fisher did against high-end talent, high-end competition at defensive end. He held up pretty well against Trey Hendrickson in the AFC Championship game. He basically kept Yannick Ngakoue of the Raiders from doing nothing in both of their matchups. He's a good player, and he's also young, so you're not only paying him for what he's done for you, but you're going to be paying him for what he's going to do. Because I think the Chiefs think he's going to be a pretty damn good left tackle. He might not be a top 5 or a top 7 left tackle now, but he very well could be.
He kind of gives me those Eric Fisher vibes where he's not going to be a reason why you lose the game, but I also don't think he's going to be this overwhelming strength for the Chiefs that's why you win football games. Now, I still think that he should get paid. I want him in Kansas City, but I also think that to say that he struggled at points last year is also fair. But like you said, he did compile a few pretty good performances against some elite pass rushers, and you make a really good point. He's 25 years old. He's going to continue to grow. And the Chiefs see this, and they're like, okay, we got to develop this guy and kind of get him locked down while he's young because, the left tackle market. Remember when we tried to get Niners left tackle? I can't remember his name. What's his name right now?
Yeah, Trent Williams.
Trent Williams.
It would have been nice to get him, and, he is better than Orlando Brown, sure, but the Niners are going to be paying him a lot of money until he's 33 years old, and I just really don't know if that's something I really wanted. If we got Trent Williams, I would have been all aboard. I would have been like, hell yeah, we got Trent Williams. I mean, he's a great player, but he's going to be getting older in a few years, and he's still going to be making a ton of money. Meanwhile, the Chiefs have someone that's maybe not as good as Trent Williams, but he's going to be young, and he's not going to be as expensive as Trent Williams. So
yeah,
I like it.
And Orlando Brown Jr.'s durability is also something that we should take into account for a strength because he doesn't really get hurt. Now, I think he missed a couple games last year, but it was a calf injury. Nothing serious. And with those offensive linemen, I kind of expect at least one to go down every year with an ACL. But I think that he's going to stay somewhat healthy for his duration in Kansas City. I guess we don't really know what his duration in Kansas City is going to be, but I think we know he's going to be here. It's not like saying that he's going to leave in free agency is a thing that I've even heard at all. He's not going anywhere. He's going to be a member of the Kansas City Chiefs. The question is going to be how long and for how much. Now, I think this kind of segues into the next topic. Do you think Tyrann Mathieu's possible extension could mess with Orlando Brown Jr.'s contract, or do you think that they tag Mathieu and sign Brown, or how do you think that's going to work out? Or maybe Tyrann just goes somewhere else?
Well, Michael, I think that I'll just start by saying this. I think Tyrann Mathieu is gone, okay? I think he's done in Kansas City Do I want that to be the case? I've kind of come to terms with it. And I think if you've just been reading the tea leaves for a while, Tyrann Mathieu was never coming back. And you can definitely see that there's a difference in the way Brett Beach and Andy Reid talk about Orlando Brown and his impending free agency and the way they talk about Tyrann Mathieu. And I think I heard that they actually can't tag Tyrann Mathieu. There's something about his contract that if you tag him, it's going to be like $20-something million against the cap, which is like way too much. And if you do that, it would kind of ruin your offseason plans, and then he would be playing on that super expensive tag or if you can't get a deal done with him long term. But, I don't think Tyrann's going to be here because I think the Chiefs and Mathieu are too far apart on the number, and the Chiefs just haven't been willing to give it to him because they see something in his future that he's going to start declining as a player sooner rather than later. And if they don't tag him, I think there's a team out there like the Baltimore Ravens or someone like that that's going to be willing to give him that money that the Chiefs haven't to this point. Like, if Tyrann Mathieu hits the market, I just think it's very, very unlikely he comes back to Kansas City. And I think they want to get bigger and they want to get more athletic.
I agree with you, and I think that I don't have a problem with Tyrann Mathieu leaving. I feel like he played his best football in Kansas City. He's not going to get any better. Like, he's kind of at the same level, and he's getting up into his 30s with ACL injuries upon ACL injuries, and you don't know what that's going to do to a player in his early to mid-30s. So I think that moving on from Tyrann wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, but kind of like with Eric Berry, you've got to have that replacement in mind. Eric Berry got replaced by Tyrann Mathieu. Maybe we should go get a Jesse Bates or a Marcus Williams kind of guy, but they got to have some other form of replacement for him because if they don't replace Tyrann Mathieu, the secondary is going to be really bad next year.
Yeah, that's something I've thought about a lot. I don't know what direction they could go. I mean, obviously, if they let Mathieu walk, cut Frank Clark, which I hope happens soon. Like, nothing's happened yet, but I really hope it happens soon because, Frank Clark cannot be on this team next year.
We would literally probably start, a campaign and go to Arrowhead with, pitchforks and fire, and we'd burn it down.
But what I was going to say is basically, they're going to have money to spend. So I think some of that money is going to have to go towards some free agents in the secondary. It could be a big splash like Marcus Williams, who I really like, or maybe even J.C. Jackson if he hits the market. Or you could maybe go for some better value type of free agents like Justin Reed or Marcus May, and then maybe draft a guy too, which I think is also another route you could go that wouldn't be as expensive as Tyrann Mathieu and wouldn't be as big of a risk as Tyrann Mathieu.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And, I love Tyrann Mathieu. He's one of my favorite players. I've met him on multiple occasions. He's always been very cordial, but I also think that, what we see him do on Twitter, it's a really big turnoff. Like, dude, just shut up. Like, we love you and all, but the Twitter antics, it got old, and I think he made a lot of business decisions this year. I don't think that he was hitting guys with the ferocity that he used to, if that's even a word. But I think that, the Tyrann Mathieu days of laying it all out there and giving it 115%, I don't think that's there anymore. And maybe it is, but I don't think that the 100% of Tyrann is as good as it was 2 years ago.
Well, he's never been as willing of a tackler as some other guys. He definitely makes business decisions. That's something he's actually always kind of done. But, yeah, I mean, he hasn't been the all-pro that he was the last 2 seasons this year. And I would definitely like them going for someone younger and more physically imposing like Marcus Williams. And, yeah, I mean, I don't hate Tyrann. I love Tyrann. I love what he's done here. It's one of those things where we love and appreciate you and what you did here, but it's just time to move on. And it's okay to admit that.
Yeah, I think that we are always going to look at Tyrann in a positive light. He was a part of the first team to bring back a Super Bowl championship in over 50, well, I guess it was 50 years. And we're always going to have a soft spot in our heart, but I think that it would be more beneficial to go out and get somebody younger and get somebody that could kind of lead this new movement, because right now we're trying to build for long-term success, and kind of tying this back in with the Orlando Brown thing. The Chiefs need to get talent young and build that core right now. Orlando Brown Jr. is young enough to where it makes sense to give him a long-term contract. Tyrann Mathieu does not. He does not fit the timetable of the Chiefs window. It just doesn't make sense, and that's why I think Orlando Brown Jr. will be back, and Tyrann Mathieu won't. But Josh, do you have any closing thoughts on either of these players, and what do you think is going to happen?
No, honestly, I'm pretty confident in what we talked about, that both those things are going to happen. I think Orlando Brown's here to stay. He'll get a pretty nice extension after getting tagged, and I see Tyrann Mathieu hitting the market and going elsewhere. What I don't know for sure is what the Chiefs are going to do, assuming that Tyrann Mathieu walks. But that's all I got, man. I think we pretty much covered it.
Yeah, I agree, and that's going to lead to some great videos, because we're going to get to talk about some of these free agent safeties. And J.C. Jackson in a Chiefs uniform, although he's a corner, that would be so special. And that's just the fun of the offseason. We're going to get to talk about all these free agents and if they're good fits for the Chiefs. But with that being said, Josh, it's always a pleasure to have you on. Where can the people find you?
Like you said at the beginning, you can find me on my channel, simply my name, Josh Fan. You can also follow me on Twitter at ShowMeSB for Show Me Football. You can check out my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com.
Guys, go do that immediately. And as for me, you can follow me on Twitter. That is at KC Sports Report. Instagram is KC_Sports Report. Obviously, go subscribe to Josh's channel. That's just Josh Fan. And subscribe to this channel for more updates, for more videos coming soon. I appreciate everybody for subscribing recently. And with that being said, have a great rest of your day, and thanks for watching.